for the college. My office is located on the Swainsboro campus, but I do come over here occasionally. We're going to go over some of the Hope changes this morning, or at least what we know about the Hope changes at this point. They're currently writing the regulations, and some things may change as they interpret the law to determine exactly what the final regulations are going to say. I will say from the beginning that please don't shoot the messenger. Nobody in financial aid wrote these regulations. The legislators wrote this legislation and wrote these rules and regulations. We're just trying to follow them as best we can. We understand it's going to be a burden for our students, and we want to advise you of what the changes are going to be as best we can. And that's what we plan to do this morning. I'm going to start a little bit this morning talking about why Hope had to change. Basically, the amount of money that's coming in from the lottery simply is not keeping up with the cost of students to go to school and the pre-kindergarten program. Even though the lottery has grown every year, just about every year it's been in existence, that amount of money is still not enough to cover all of the costs for students to go to college because of rising tuition and the number of students that are going to college, because there's been a huge increase in the number of students that are going to college right now. And Governor Deal and a bipartisan group of legislators drafted the new regulations that go into effect fall to try to keep Hope from going to bankrupt in 2013. And this is a quote from Governor Deal's press release about that. I won't read that to you, but it's there in the information packet for you. But if you'll notice and look here, this red line that you see here is the amount of money that's being spent on the lottery. And it started out in 1994 and, of course, had a huge spike that first year. For a couple of years back in the 90s, the amount that was spent exceeded what came in, but there was enough surplus to take care of that. But you'll notice over time, and for the last 10 years or so, the amount that was being spent on the lottery was lower than what was coming in, because this gray line is the amount of money that's coming in from the lottery and being turned over for education. But in 2009 and just around 2009, 2010, those two numbers met. For the 2010 year, there was about a $130 million deficit between what Hope brought in and between what the lottery brought in and what Hope paid out. And they predicted that by 2013, if you'll notice here, that would be almost $500 million would be the deficit. And that would completely take up the surplus that was created for Hope. So they had to do something to try to bring the cost down so that the Hope system did not go bankrupt and run out of money. But this is the basic reason why Hope had to change. Beginning in summer quarter of this year, the first thing that's going to happen is the book voucher is going to change somewhat. If you are Pell eligible, you will still receive the full book voucher amount for summer term, and Hope will pay all of your tuition and fees if you're Pell eligible. If you're not Pell eligible, then the amount of your book voucher will be cut in half. So if you were supposed to get a $100 book voucher for being 6 or more hours, you will only receive a $50 Hope book voucher summer term. If you have less than 6 hours, you will only get a $25 book voucher instead of a $50 book voucher. Now remember, our summer term is a shortened term, so most students probably can only take 2 classes summer anyway. So some of you may be below 6 hours and may only receive that $25 book voucher. The important thing you need to remember is even if you're in a certificate program that is not Pell eligible, or if you know you're not going to be Pell eligible, for us to determine what your book voucher amount will be, you must do a Pell application before summer term. So you don't have to be in a Pell eligible program to get the full book voucher amount, but if there is no Pell application in the system for you when we award book vouchers, it will automatically award you at the reduced amount. So if you're in a certificate program such as CNA that doesn't pay Pell, but you are determined to be Pell eligible, you can still get the full book voucher for summer term. So you need that Pell application even if you're not in a Pell eligible program. All right. Also for summer quarter, all of the fees that have been being covered by Hope, which is the $46, will be covered by Hope Grant and Scholarship. And Hope will pay the full tuition amount that you're charged if you are Hope eligible or summer term. But summer term will be the last term that there will be a book voucher, and it will be the last term that Hope will pay any of your fees. And it will no longer pay 100% of your tuition after summer term. Because beginning fall semester under the new regulations, Hope Grant and Scholarship will no longer pay the cost of any of your fees. Now, under the semester system, your registration fee will be $39, your insurance fee will be $6, and your activity fee will be $24. Hope will not cover those fees. They will have to come out of your Pell, or you will have to pay them out of pocket fall semester. Also, the book allowance is eliminated for both Hope Grant and Hope Scholarship. Also, Hope will only cover 90% of the tuition rate that was charged for the current term we're in right now. The regulations that were passed by the legislators say that the amount Hope will cover will always be based on spring of 2011. Whatever the tuition rate was for spring of 2011 will be what will determine how much Hope will cover. All right? So what we did is we took the $45 that was charged for tuition per credit hour this term, transferred that to the semester rate, which is 45 times 1.5, and then applied 90% to that, which comes up to $60.75. Now, the charge for fall semester per credit hour will be $75. So of that 75, okay. Of the $75 that is charged per credit hour fall semester, Hope will only pay $60.75 of that total. There will be no book voucher amount. Hope will not cover any of your fees, and it will only pay $60.75 of the fall semester tuition rate of $75 per credit hour. And the instructional technology fee has always not been covered by Hope. The amount of these fees and the tuition amount not covered by Hope is the responsibility of the student. And here's a chart. You should have picked up a larger version of this if you can't see this one up here. But if you'll notice, if you had 1 hour at $75 and $124 in fees, which is a total of $199, Hope will only pay $60.75 of that, and the student would be responsible for $138.25. Now, we don't have any classes that are 1 hour. I think the smallest class we offer is only 2 hours. So you can look at the 2-hour line if you have a 2-hour class. But for a full-time student who's taking 15 hours or more, Hope will only pay $911.25 of that total, and the student will be responsible for $337.75 fall semester. So if you do not receive Pell, you will have to pay that charge out of pocket before you can start classes. Because remember, we have a purge process which says that all outstanding fees must be paid before the quarter or semester begins, or you'll be dropped from all your classes. So the semester will begin on August the 22nd. That amount will have to be paid prior to the 22nd, or you'll be dropped from all your classes. And we usually run the purge about a week before the term starts. And to get back in, you would have to pay that total before you could be re-registered. But this would be the amount you have to pay if you're full-time. Now, if you take less than 15 hours, again, you can use the chart to determine how much you'll be eligible for. Are there any questions about that before I go on? Okay. Now, like I said, if you're Pell eligible, that amount can come out of your Pell if you have enough Pell to cover. Okay? But it will reduce the amount of your Pell book voucher in the bookstore, and it will reduce the amount of Pell refund you would receive at the end of the term if those come, because those have to come out of Pell. Those charges have to come out of Pell. Also, beginning fall semester, there's a new GPA requirement for the Hope Grant. In the past, there's never been a minimum GPA you had to have in order to receive Hope Grant. But beginning fall semester, there is a 3.0 GPA requirement. That regulation goes into effect at the end of fall semester. So at the end of fall semester, everybody's grade GPA will be calculated at the 45th quarter hour. So if you've attempted at least 45 hours at the diploma level since 2004, you have to have a 3.0 GPA at the end of fall semester to receive any kind of Hope spring semester. That is equivalent to 30 semester hours. If you lose it at 45 hours, you cannot gain it back until you get to 90 hours. You can also lose it at 90 hours. So if at 90 hours that Hope paid for or could have paid for, you do not have the 3.0, you will lose Hope Grant and would not receive any kind of Hope. So if your GPA falls below the 3.0 mark, you have one opportunity to regain your eligibility. That's at 90 hours. Also, students who already have a 4-year degree will no longer be able to receive Hope Grant. And we have a few students who went to college years ago, received a bachelor's degree or a 4-year degree. The profession that they were trained for is no longer a viable profession. Their plant closed down that they were working in with that, and they wanted to come back to school and be retrained. In the past, they could get Hope Grant, but starting fall semester, that is no longer the case. Once you receive a 4-year degree, you cannot receive any kind of Hope. Also, if you did not graduate from a Georgia high school beginning fall semester, you must be a resident of Georgia for 24 months before you can receive Hope of any kind. That is a new regulation as well beginning fall. Most of you should have already been determined to have been Hope residents. Once you're determined to be a Hope resident, as long as you don't have a break in enrollment, we don't recheck your Hope residency. So as long as you stay continuously enrolled, you should be fine. But any of you that sit out, if you come back fall or later, you have to have been in Georgia for 24 months to receive Hope from that point forward. That rule was already in place for Hope Scholarship. And again, this only applies to those students that didn't graduate from a Georgia high school. If you graduated from a Georgia high school, it's still 12 months. The Hope paid hours limit and the Hope combined paid hours limit starting fall semester are also hard caps. In the past, if you had at least 1 hour of eligibility left when you started a term, Hope would pay for you to take that entire term, no matter how many hours you took. So even though you only had 1 hour of eligibility, Hope would pay for you to take all 15 hours. Starting fall semester, that is no longer the case. If you only have 1 hour of eligibility when the term begins, Hope will only pay for 1 hour of your tuition at that 90% rate, and you will be responsible for all tuition above that. So those of you that get to that 95-hour cap, when you are approaching that, we normally send you an email when you get within 20 hours to let you know you're about to lose Hope under the grant. Keep in mind, it's only going to pay for the number of hours you have left when that term starts, is all it will cover. And there's an example there. Now, on the Hope Scholarship side, when you change over to the degree, and go into a degree program, there's a new regulation that goes into effect fall semester that says you cannot have been more than 7 years since your high school graduation. The new law says that it has been 7 years since you graduated from high school, you cannot receive Hope Scholarship. So, and there's no grandfathering anybody in other than current students who received Hope Scholarship during the current year. If you received Hope Scholarship during the current award year, you have until June 30th, 2015 to finish using Hope Scholarship. But if you have not already been in the degree and have not received Hope Scholarship, and it's been more than 7 years since you graduated from high school, you will never be able to receive Hope Scholarship or the Zell Miller Scholarship, which we'll go over in a minute. That's a 7-year rule now. You must use your Hope Scholarship within 7 years. Also, beginning fall semester, learning support classes will not be paid for under the scholarship in the degree program. Even if you're eligible for Hope Scholarship, you cannot receive Hope Scholarship for learning support classes. There's no change in the GPA requirements as for attempted hours. They're still at the same checkpoints: 45 quarter hours or 30 semester hours, 90 quarter hours or 60 semester hours, and 135 quarter or 90 semester hours are the checkpoints where you have to have the 3.0. But remember, it's no fees, no books, and only 90% of the spring tuition rate that will be paid for fall semester if you have that 3.0 in the degree program. You can also only regain eligibility one time after losing it beginning fall semester. This is probably only going to affect those students who lose eligibility due to an end of spring checkpoint. But in theory, it could happen. If you lose Hope Scholarship for any reason, and at the next point you regain it, if you ever lose it again, no matter if you get the 3.0 GPA at a future checkpoint, you can never receive Hope Scholarship again. You can only regain eligibility one time under the new regulations. Now, the Zell Miller Scholarship is a new scholarship program for the brightest students and the students with the best grade point averages. If you graduated from high school with at least a 3.7 GPA and an SAT combined score of 1200 on the critical reading and math, then you can receive the Zell Miller Scholarship, which pays another 10% of the spring tuition rate. Now, a lot of the press that's been out there about this particular program says it pays 100% of tuition, but it is 100% of the spring tuition rate. So if tuition continues to go up, it's 100% of the spring tuition rate, not 100% of what's charged for that term. Does everybody understand that? Now, also, let's talk a little bit about the 90% and the 100%. That number will change each year. Before July the 1st, the legislature will determine what that rate will be, whether it will continue to be 90% or if it will go up or down. That's going to depend on how much money Hope has. If so many people are eliminated from Hope that Hope has a surplus and they see that they can pay more, they may increase that 90% to 95%. And in theory, they could go over 100%, I guess. They haven't really said they're going to do that. But remember, it's always going to be based on whatever the tuition rate that was charged for the current term, is what the law says. So even 5 years from now, it's going to be the percentage of the current tuition rate. But in theory, they could go up to 105% in the future if there's enough money in the Hope system. If Hope continues to lose money, they may go to 80%. But that number will be set each year. But for next 8 years, from July the 1st of this year until June the 30th of next year, it will be 90% for all 4 of the terms that we'll have next academic year. It will be 90%. For the Zell Miller, it will be 100% of the spring rate. Okay? It also does not cover any fees or books. And at the checkpoints, you have to have a 3.3 GPA. So even if you didn't graduate from high school as a Zell Miller Scholar, if at the checkpoint you have at least a 3.3 GPA, you can pick up the Zell Miller Scholarship, just like on Hope Grant. Basically what will happen is you'll get Hope Scholarship for the first 90%. Then if you're eligible for Zell, you'll get another 10% for the Zell. If you have a 3.3 GPA at the checkpoint. Again, you can only lose it once. You can only regain it once. And there is a 7-year rule for this one as well. You must use it within 7 years of your high school graduation. Also, homeschool students can receive a retroactive payment if they're determined to meet the eligibility at the first checkpoint. A lot of times homeschool students, because they don't have SAT scores and don't have that high school GPA, those students can't get Hope Scholarship or the Zell Scholarship initially. But if they meet the 3.0 or the 3.3, they can get retroactive payment and get paid back for that first year if they have those grades at the 45-hour checkpoint. There are not a lot of students that fall into that. Okay? Are there any questions about what I talked about with these changes?
Hope Scholarship, I went to it before or after. When I first graduated, I had Hope and I lost. So I was like, I graduated with Hope, so I would have to regain my Hope this year.
Correct, and that loss counts as your one and only loss. You can only regain it one time. So if you were able to regain it and you ever lose it again, you would never be able to get it back. Any history that you have since 2004 and you lose it, that counts as your loss. There's no grandfathering of any of that in. Any other questions? All right, I want to talk a little bit about Pell. There's a lot of questions about Pell, and I want to tell you what we think is going to happen with Pell at this point. If you remember with Pell, we divided your Pell for the year into fourths, and you receive 1/4 of it each term that you're here for 4 quarters, correct? Then you had to be full-time in order to receive that full amount, and if you weren't full-time, it was divided into fourths again, And if you have from 9 to 11 hours, you receive 3/4 of that amount. From 6 to 8, you receive half, and less than 6, you only receive 1/4 of the amount. Okay, everybody with me about how that's been going in the past. When we convert to the semester system, what we think is going to happen is we're going to divide Pell by thirds because there are only 3 semesters in a year. So you would get 1/3 of your Pell each semester that you're here, and then again, you have to have 12 hours to receive the full third, or it's divided in fours. Okay? Now, next academic year is a little different because it's a blended year. We're not converting to the semester system until fall, so there will be a summer quarter, and then there will be 3 semesters in next year. All right? Federal regulations say that if it's a quarter, you can only get 25%. So for summer quarter, you would still get the 1/4 of the yearly amount for summer if you have 12 hours. Now, we understand that you may not be able to take 12 hours during the summer semester, and we asked the feds if they could adjust that because of that situation, and their answer was no. It is a firm, in the law, rule that they will not deviate from. And we understand that most of you will not be able to receive your full Pell summer semester, but you're also not going to be taking a full load of classes. Most students can only take 2 classes, which is only 10 hours, so you would only get 3/4 of that amount for this summer term. All right? Then, when we convert to the semester system, you'll get 33% in fall and 33% in spring. Now, if you add 25%, 33%, and 33%, that comes up to 91. So you would only have 9% left over for next summer term. So you would only receive 9% of your Pell next summer if you were full-time all 3 of those terms. Now with online classes, it's possible to be full-time this first quarter. Most students won't do that. Whatever you don't use in this first quarter, we can roll over and add to next summer semester if you didn't use it. So 9% is only like $551 for next summer. But if you had 25% that you didn't use for the current summer quarter, we can take that 25% and give it to you next summer quarter. So in theory, you would be above 9%. Everybody follow me on that? Whatever you don't use, if you're not full-time, one of these first 3, you can receive up to 33% next summer quarter if you have it left over. So that's what we think is going to happen with Pell. So when you get your initial award letter, it's only going to show you're going to get $500 next summer quarter. Don't be alarmed by that. If you have anything left over that you didn't use the first summer quarter, then you can roll that over to the next summer semester if you have it left over. And we will readjust it when that term starts for just those students who are enrolled for that term. It's a manual process, so we won't do it until we get to summer semester, and if you're enrolled next summer semester, we'll go in and see how much you had left over and roll it over the next summer semester so that your Pell goes up. You'll still receive your Pell on the 28th day of the term as usual. You'll still be able to use it in the bookstore. Just keep in mind, more of your charges will have to come out of your Pell before you get it going forward, because Hope's not paid. Okay? If you have any questions that you want to come by the office, come by and see Ms. Etheridge, Ms. Rushing here on the Vidalia campus, or call me. We'll be glad to go over it with you. Because of all the regulations being written right now and them not being final, we cannot put your financial aid on your account right now. Even though you're registered and you have charges, your financial aid cannot go on your account right now because we don't know what the final regulations are going to say. And until all these decisions are made, we can't put financial aid on your account. So don't be alarmed by the fact that you're registered and there's no financial aid on your account at this point. We will get it on within the month probably once they write all the regs. And you won't owe anything until that happens, and the business office shouldn't send you any bills before that happens. Just make sure you've done your applications and your Pell. Please check on your Pell application and make sure we have received it. We have noticed a number of Pell applications that have been sort of lost in cyberspace somewhere. You've done them, but we never got them. We've had about 10 or 15 students that have come in and they've done it, but we don't have it, and when we go out and look, sure enough it's been done, but we never got an electronic version of that file. So make sure you check and make sure we've gotten your Pell application for next year. If we haven't, come by and see us, and we can go out and do a request for a duplicate and get that. But be sure and check on your financial aid. Has everybody done their Pell application already? You need to come by and check. If you're unsure about whether you've done it or not, come by the financial aid office or come and go on Battle Web and you can check and see if there's anything out there for next year. All right? Any questions?